Welcome to the Putting the Public into Health podcast by Dr. Richard Pan. As we face one of the greatest public health disasters in the century, this podcast will address questions and issues from you, the public, about the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on people's health and lives. I am Dr. Richard Pan. I am a physician with a background in public health, and I'm proud to represent the people of Sacramento, Elk Grove, West Sacramento, and parts of Sacramento County in the California State Senate. I want to share with you important information and stories to help each other during this difficult time. Black Americans are suffering from disparities in health, education, income, and many other areas because of racism. For example, in California, blacks have twice the death rate from COVID-19 as other Americans. The NAACP is a leading voice for civil rights to address this injustice. So I am honored to have Betty Williams, president of the Sacramento NAACP, join me. I got to know Betty when she led efforts to enroll Sacramento residents for Covered California when I served in the California State Assembly. In 2010, she also led outreach to minority communities in Sacramento for the 2010 U.S. Census, and a reminder that please fill out the 2020 U.S. Census. And under her leadership, the Sacramento NAACP has been working with local law enforcement on community-driven policing. Thank you so very much, Betty, for joining me.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate this.
So how did you get involved in the civil rights movement yourself?
Well, actually, my parents were very involved. I'm from a little town in the Midwest called Champaign-Urbana. And growing up there and getting married and my children and then migrating from the Midwest to California, I never had issues with my kids in school. I have 3 African-American men, 4 my sons. And once I got to California, it just seemed to be an issue with excessive suspensions and expulsions with African-American young men. And I reached out then to the NAACP for help. And although they did as much as they could, I realized they needed help as well. And so I joined, and that's how the story began.
All right. Now, you've served as president of the Sacramento NAACP for several terms.
Right.
So what were your goals for this current term as president? Before, I think you came into office before COVID, correct?
Right. Well, my goals were this: to initiate leadership training when it comes to civil rights and advocacy work. What I learned and still learning is that a lot of individuals don't understand what civil rights is, don't understand what the NAACP is, and so I needed to start there. I wanted to increase our technology by having a useful website where people can go online and do online complaints and sign up. And we didn't have the technology before. And I wanted to repurpose our general membership meetings. In the past presidents, between me not being president, they had a regurgitation of executive meeting reports. And so I thought this has to be a better way. So you look at the issues of the day, and your community wants to come to the NAACP and, find out resources of what they can do when it comes to disparities, whether it's with criminal justice, health care, employment. That's 1. And 2, they wanted us to speak to things that they were dealing with and how to resolve those things. And so I decided to do general membership meetings with a purpose, is what I'm calling them. And so we let the general public know what we were doing. And so it was also important for me to implement and initiate a program called Know Your Rights, a full program that educated our young people on their rights if ever stopped by law enforcement. And not just stop there, but have a document that they walk away with. We call them pocket tips, and they're small little pocket tips that will fit in your wallet, in the glove compartment, in your purse, that you can take with you, and it has the number of the NAACP. But it also just tells you when we're not around, these are the things that you need to do in case law enforcement enter your home, your car, if you're walking down the street. And so we've been able to achieve a lot of those goals.
Mm-hmm. So now, how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected this work, the work that you've been doing and how's it affected the Black community here in Sacramento?
Well, as far as affecting our work, it has affected it tremendously. When it comes to sponsorship, we are a 100% volunteer organization. No one gets paid, including myself. And so we depend on our fundraisers throughout the year, which are normally face-to-face. So we're in the midst of changing some things. We have a free legal clinic that we have done for the last decade. Every third Saturday, individuals can come in and speak to an attorney for free, whether you're a member or not, for any issue, whether it's criminal justice, housing, employment, education, it doesn't matter. So now we don't have that platform where people can come in every third Saturday. So we have attempted to try to have people email us, and then our attorneys call them, and we have the conversations on those third Saturdays. But it's not as effective, and we haven't been getting the information out like I would like. So without having that legal redress net that can catch a lot of individuals, we find that our phone lines have increased. Our office has been shut since March 15th, I believe, and no one has been in that office since then. We did transfer our phones. We are answering calls. We are answering emails, but that's the best we can do. COVID, we realized through, just like you know, that it is affecting the African American community more than others. And so as a branch, we personally reached out to city council people asking that we actually have a site in our neighborhoods like the Meadowview, Del Paso Heights, Oak Park for testing. In the very beginning, there was pushback. They were telling us, go to Cal Expo. However, I had to also explain, as an African American, you're dealing with a lot of things. So if you don't have the testing in their neighborhoods and you're telling them during COVID when they lost their jobs, the transportation for regional transit has been reduced to a holiday schedule, and you're telling them they can go to Cal Expo and they're living in the South area, they don't have the money, the means, and so therefore they can't get tested. So it was important to us that they incorporate a site where African Americans are most likely to be so that they can go get testing for free. And the other piece, they were requiring in the beginning that individuals go through their primary care doctor. And so I had to educate them that a lot of individuals, one, don't have a primary care doctor or don't even understand what that is. And so they lose from even getting started. So we had to change the criteria and says, if you feel this is what you have, call and you'll get tested. And so as a result, we do have at least two places that we are going to have sites. One is the South Christian Center in the Meadowview area, and the second is Pastor Williams Church in Oak Park. And so we're working on the one in Del Paso Heights. We haven't confirmed that one yet. But finally, the county health department and others heard us in a collective voice say, we need these sites to be tested. And because right now it looked like a hot button is in the zip code of 95823 in Oak Park, 95817. And so it was important that we establish sites there for testing so people at least know, although there's not a treatment, but they would do things differently if they knew they had the COVID. Right now, they may still be going to the store maybe once a week just to get their essential items. But if they knew they had COVID, they wouldn't leave the house at all. And so those are the things that we as NAACP have been working on when it comes to COVID and educating our community on getting testing and how to prevent.
No, that's so very important that people are able to get the information about their own health and also so that they can know what they need to do to protect their neighbors and family and friends.
St. Paul Baptist Church, the other site. Thank you.
All right. Now, there's been a long history of police brutality toward Black Americans in this country and even here in our own region here in Sacramento. In fact, just 2 years ago, police officers killed Stephon Clark in Sacramento, which led to numerous protests. Then more recently, the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis by police and other recent killings of Black Americans have led to new protests across the country, including here in Sacramento. Now, on June 6th, the Sacramento NAACP with the Black American Political Association California and Be Woke Vote held a large rally, and I was proud to be there with you in downtown Sacramento. So what was the goal of the rally? Were you able to achieve what you hoped from the rally?
Yes. If you listen to the community, as much as what's going on, people wanted to do something in a peaceful fashion. They wanted their voice to be heard. They wanted to hear if there's any next steps of what they need to do in order to do something. And so we purposely branded it as a peaceful march because of all the rhetoric that was out there with other marches, and there was a small amount of people doing some bad things. But NAACP has always been on the side of peace. And so we wanted to make sure anything that involved the NAACP as far as a march and a rally, that you can be assured if there's any negativity, it's not part of who we are. And people that know the branding of the NAACP knew that. So that was one. Two, they wanted to do something. Regardless of COVID, I could hear the community everyone wanted to come together and, at least in the visual sense, show that we were together in one voice when it came to this issue. So it gave individuals the opportunity to do that. We also had information on voter registration. It was important for us to say, if you want changes to happen, we are in an election year. And being in an election year, you have the opportunity to make these changes happen. Registering to vote is just not the end all. You have to show up and actually cast your ballot. And so with that, we talked about things that they can do as far as talking to your city council people and county board of supervisors and your state legislators and say, we want accountability. And what does accountability look like to us? We want officers who have backgrounds not to be put in situations to kill Black people. If they have more than one or two excessive force issues on their performance, then they need to be pulled off the street immediately with disciplinary action and training before put back on the street. We want ongoing training, not just when you first come into the academy and you get your standard training, and when something happens, you get another dose of training. We want the training to be ongoing when it comes to implicit bias, discrimination, racism, how to work with Black people. We want them to invest into us by sending appropriate people to the door when there's different non-criminal issues happening. If there's something going on when it comes to a child, CPS needs to be involved versus an officer with a gun. If it's a mental health issue that's non-criminal, then a social worker or a psychiatrist needs to show up at the door versus someone with a gun. Send the professional people where needed versus law enforcement. We cannot police our way out of every issue. And so we wanted individuals to hear that these are our concerns. These are the changes that we want our local government to make, and not wait, but to make the changes immediately. And as a result of a lot of those things, we were negotiating even prior to the march. And so one of the things that we did hear the mayor say that he would be making some changes immediately in the chokehold was one of them. Chief Hahn came out with that. The mayor later has come out with an inspector general oversight with subpoena power, in addition to putting in $5 million for non-police officers to address the needs that I just described. So, and there's other things that we've asked for, and we're still working through them, but we wanted people to know that we had a plan. These things that we have started working on, and we needed their support in coming into City Hall, whether it's virtual or physical, coming into the Capitol, whether it's virtual or physical, because their voices are very important in order to make change. And a prime example would be AB 392, which in the past would have never been voted on and approved if it had not been for the community coming together in one voice, crowding those assembly hallways and making sure that our voices were heard. And so the point of the march was to come together. People needed to show their face, show solidarity, and they felt good about it without incident. And they walked away with some tangible things that we hope everyone heard.
That's wonderful. Now, it's pointed out this issue of police brutality, disparities, these have been going on for a very long time. People have said 400 years. And mentioned that 2 years ago, we were out in the streets talking about Stephon Clark. Do you see that the political environment has changed with these protests now compared to, let's say, even 2 years ago or 5 years ago, in terms of people willing to really look at the issue and make changes?
Absolutely. And when I say yes to that, because what the world witnessed is what the African American sees and feels every single day. Mm-hmm. The attitude of that officer on the neck of George Floyd is something we experience every day. And I say we because, one, I have 3 sons, but I'm also the president of the NAACP that get the calls every single day of, I wasn't doing anything, Miss Williams. This officer, his attitude, no matter what I said, yes, sir, no, sir, he held me, or he choked me, or he did intimidating things to me and humiliated me in front of my wife and kids. We hear it every day. It was the first time that the world was able to look through our lens for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and watch, in my humble opinion, a black man being lynched in modern day, what we see every day from beginning to end. It wasn't a clip where individuals are saying, oh, you just seen a portion of the clip. We don't know what happened before this. This is the first time that African Americans said, this is our life. Mm-hmm. That knee that's on his neck is our everyday life, and it's not captured every day. And we're lucky that some of us walked away with our life. And so it's one of the things I grew up, my mom and dad told me, because I had boys, the prayer is that they live past 25. I don't think any other culture teaches the mother of boys that you pray that your sons make it past the age of 25, not because of healthcare disparities, but because of law enforcement and the criminal justice system. And so the prayer is that they don't die or end up in prison. And more likely, if they can make it past 25, they'll be okay. So every time each one of my sons became 25, I thought, okay, maybe I can breathe now. But to again answer your question, the world for the first time, in our opinion, it was like, oh, they see it from beginning to end, what we go through. And now people tend to want to make change, real change in real time. So I see something different than I've never seen before.
Mm-hmm. No, I really appreciate you sharing this. Now, we talked about the this has been going on for a long time. In fact, the NAACP itself was established in response to a deadly race riot in Springfield, Illinois in 1908. Certainly, the NAACP has a long and storied history as our nation's premier civil rights organization. At the same time, we have a lot of youth who have sort of their own ideas and perhaps maybe a little less patience for people who've been on the front lines for a long time. How is the Sacramento NAACP connecting with youth in our community around these issues?
Well, we have our own youth and college division and a young adult division with the NAACP. And so training. So part of our training is to teach them how to lobby with local politicians and legislators, and we teach them how to go to the Capitol. I think they may have we have visited your office a few times at the Capitol, but it's a full day of training of how to move a bill, how to advocate and lobby for different things that interest you when it comes to school or criminal justice. We also have a voter registration drive within the high schools, and we teach them because California now can register a person at the age of 16. They will get their first ballot on their birthday, their 18th birthday, but they can actually register to vote at the age of 16, which is a new tool that we haven't had before. So young people in high school in real time are registering to vote and understanding the power of the vote early. We also have them advocating for changes within their own school. The NAACP of Sacramento, we cover from Galt to the Nevada line. So we cover a lot of school districts, a lot of cities. And so because of that, we have school districts that are way outside of the county of Sacramento that feel they can do things differently. And so we're teaching our young African-American kids on how to advocate and make changes within their school. So we have been continuing to work, and they have a voice even during our platform last Saturday with our march. We made sure that they were included. We made sure however they wanted to express themselves on how they felt about what was going on then and now. And just recently, when you talk about history, and you started with the 1908, but if you start with the branch of the Sacramento NAACP, we started in 1916. And the whole and sole purpose of starting the branch in 1916, 104 years ago, was because of the number of lynchings of African-American men in the city of Sacramento. It was such a large number that it was felt that we needed an NAACP. And so you fast forward to 104 years later, there's 2 lynchings in California of African-American men, or they're hanging from trees. And so I've been able to discuss what is civil rights, why we got started, and we may not see a man hanging from a tree, but there's a different type of lynching that we are still advocating to fight against. And so that's what our training is about. And so individuals understand what we do. And once they're involved with NAACP, they then know it's just not the 1960s march. It's so much deeper than that. Just simply being an advocate for someone in the school who's about to be suspended or expelled. When you have the presence of an advocate from NAACP in the room, we win 95% of the time. So they see the change that we make, and I explain to them we're change makers and we're change agents. And so that's what I'm training them to be, because I won't be president forever. So we have to teach our young people to grow into the role.
Okay. So we're sort of coming to the end of our time, and you've shared so much that's so important for everyone to hear. Did you have any perhaps final words on what we should do here in Sacramento to address racism and can we heal the divisions in our society?
I think healing is possible, but it's not a light switch. It's going to take time. Mm-hmm. I think communication and conversation with each other, and actually when I say that, I really mean this, within your own culture. So if you're white, have a conversation with your white partner about this issue and what you can do. It's one thing to have the conversation and to say, okay, Betty, you're black or you have black sons. What can I do? But I think the conversation should be within your own race. What can we do? How do I feel? In the past, this is what I've done. What can we do better to advocate so that this won't continue to happen to one race, the African American race? Support your local NAACP. We don't have enough hands to handle all the issues that we have. We had 3,300 issues last year. We're well over 2,000 this year, and it's just June. A lot of the times, if we just simply had the help, people who are in specialties like healthcare and education, whatever that is, we need the support of others in NAACP. And we need to promote and advocate for professionals to be knocking on the doors when non-criminal issues are coming through the 911. If someone is sleeping in their car because they are drunk, they don't deserve to die. They deserve a system that helps them. If they're having a mental issue, they deserve an issue that helps them. So talk among each other, talk to and work with advocates like the NAACP or BAPAC or National Coalition of Women, NAN, SAC, all of those other organizations. If it's not us, choose one and work together to make the change that we are so desperately in need of. And I think that would be the great start of making changes, because collectively we are such a power force. And I'm already watching some changes that are happening on a national level as well, on a local level, because we have come together. But the conversations with each other and individually must happen if we expect for change to happen.
Okay, well, thank you so very much for taking your time to join me and to share these really important insights, Betty, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me and allowing me to speak my truth. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for listening to this episode of Putting the Public into Health by Dr. Richard Pan. If you have questions or ideas for a future podcast, please email them to senator.pan@senate.ca.gov. Please stay at home as much as possible. Stay at least 6 feet away from others outside. Wash your hands frequently. If you can, wear a mask and try not to touch your face. Together, we are slowing the spread of the disease and saving lives. Thank you so much for listening.